Hi, I'm Jim Riley, and welcome to Salute the Vets, the program that shares the stories and adventures of all our beloved veterans. Today, Tom Bristol.
Yes, Tom Bristol's the name.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Your story is one that people need to hear about. So, before we went on the air, we talked about all this as a young man, and fortunately you're still with us today. So, give us a little beginning of the story of your adventures.
Well, I went to Eyesight High School in Paterson.
Paterson, New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Right.
And I didn't like it. My dad had an electrical business under B Electric in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. So I quit high school and I started working for him. And then the war came along. I was 17 and my dad could not get any material. So I said, I'm going to go in the service. He said, You can't, because we're not going to sign you.
Right.
I said, well, so I begged Mom. Mom said, okay, we'll do it. So I enlisted in. I wanted to be an electrician in the Army.
It made sense.
Right.
To prepare for your future when the war was over.
That is right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I took my basic at Sargent, New Jersey.
Also, I was going to say, also in New Jersey.
And then I was pretty good at shooting because my dad had a shooting clay pigeon, 12 position zone in Fair Lawn, New Jersey.
So you had a lot of experience in that
right.
area.
And I used to let the pigeons out, make the guys fool around, shoot here, shoot there, and then they let me do it when I was 12 years old. So then anyway, I followed it through, and then the Army found out I was too good for the infantry.
Right.
They said, you're going to the Air Corps.
Right.
And they said, no, I said the Air Corps.
Right.
And they said, no, the Army Air Corps.
That's right. At that time, it was still the Army Air Corps.
So then I got back down from Atlantic City, where I took more basic with the Army Air Corps, and they found out I was a good shot. 98 out of 100. That's pretty good skeet.
Yeah, yes it is. Yes it is.
So I also shot skeet with a 22 and a 410. I wasn't that good with that, but I got them once in a while. So then I did end up down in Florida, and I was in a two-seater AT-6, and I followed a target, and I did pretty good at that target.
Now that's a training aircraft?
That's a training aircraft for gunnery.
Yeah.
And from gunnery, we went to Biloxi, Mississippi, and then to South Carolina. And I ended up as a ball turret gunner on a B-25 Mitchell.
B-25. What do they call those?
B-25 Mitchell.
Yeah, a Mitchell, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then when we were almost ready to take off for our zone, we didn't know where, they changed our plane to an H model with no more turret. So they said, now you're going to be a tail gunner.
Right.
So I ended up as a tail gunner. And we went to Florida, and then back to Biloxi, Mississippi, and then all the way to Puerto Rico, and it took us 7 days to get to Karachi, India.
That is out there.
Right, and by the way, when I got to Karachi, my aunt had asked me to be baptized. So I went to the chaplain, no problem, baptized and signed in a little Army Bible that they gave us.
Wonderful.
And that was it.
Well, family, we were talking about, again, before we went on the air, that family is very important, and when you're out there by yourself, you want to be attached to family. If they need that, baptism is a good thing, and the chaplain took care of you.
Right, he did. So anyway, we laid down there for a few days until we got assigned. We were a 12-bomber replacement group in Assam, India.
Right.
So we ended up on our base, which was called Hailakandi. And we were about a mile and a half, an hour and a half from Burma.
Right.
Where the Japs had taken over the Chinese and all that stuff.
Right.
And that was most of our missions. We were known as the bridge busters.
You did, you concentrated on the bridges. You said you also dealt with railroads.
The railroads, we strafed all the railroad cars, and some minor little airports that the Japs had hidden. And of course, sometimes ground crew, which we didn't like to do, but hey, it was us or them.
Right, you have to do what you have to
right.
do. Now, you were still very young at this point.
I was 19 when I was overseas and 20.
Right.
And of course, I got shot a little bit up on our plane, and we crash landed because we couldn't parachute because we were always low and flying.
Right.
Sometimes maybe 100 feet above the ground.
That's amazing.
So we came in, we crash landed, and that's how I ended up getting my Purple Heart, because we were in flame.
Right.
I tried to get out the waste, and it was too much. That's how I got burnt, with the flames in the waist.
Right.
So I went back to my tail, and I finally got the hatch opened.
Right.
And I ducked down because bullets were flying all over, worse than the Japs were doing. So
Right.
my own plane was shooting at me.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
The other thing, and we were talking about that, you really didn't experience a lot of fear because you're just dealing with what you were dealing with at the time, right?
And we were young, we had no fear. I mean,
Right.
we were scared. I'm not saying we weren't, but
Right.
we had no fear.
But you
really.
still function, you do what you have to do. The other thing you were telling me is you even had to fly a little bit because you had to double up on duties depending on what happened, right?
Right. We would take, or before we got to the target, he would designate somebody, you come up here, like me, they said, tail gunner, shoot up here. And I sat in the co-pilot seat and took over
Right.
the controls.
Because sometimes you don't know what's going to happen. You may, in fact, have to fly the plane for a while.
That is right, yes.
Now, the other thing you were telling me, and I think it's very, very important that people understand what that environment was like. What was it like in that tail section? What was your environment like as you dealt with your weapon there?
Well, before we even took off, I would climb back to my little bicycle seat.
And that's all it was?
And that's it, and put my knees down on the bottom of the plane, inside, of course, and then
Right.
I grab my 250s and I'm ready to go.
And that's how you dealt with things?
Yes, and the pilot would say, arm your guns. When we got up in the air, because once in the air, you don't know if the Japs are going to come after you here, there, or where.
You don't know what's going on or when it's going to happen.
That is right.
That's the other thing. How did you deal with that gap where nothing's happening to all of a sudden you're in this firestorm? How did you adjust?
Your eyes I used to have good eyesight, 20/20.
Right.
And I could see pretty good. Even with the sun looking at me, I could see up into the sun sometimes. My
Right.
eyes were great. And that was on our way to the mission. And once you're close to the target, now your eyes are really focusing.
Yeah, because you know things are going to heat up and
Right.
you're really going to be active.
Right.
Now, how long a break did you get between missions?
Our missions were anywhere from, I'd say, 2 hours and 50 minutes, 3 hours. Our longest mission, I'd say, was about 3 hours and 10 minutes, because we were right close to Burma.
And very intense.
Right.
During that time. Now, how much time did you spend on the ground between flights?
Oh, months. Sometimes we wouldn't have to take a flight because you had lousy weather in India.
Right.
And we had the monsoons, which was very
You get
bad.
in that season, yeah.
Yeah, it was unseasonable we were at. And we were up to China, to the Flying Tigers for 2 months.
Right.
And we flew out of Hong Kong.
Right.
Once in Hong Kong. But then Kunming was our landing base when we were in China.
Right.
And then we were put back into India. And my tour was over because I had over 50 missions. I had 54 missions.
That's a lot of missions.
And,
what was the minimum that you had to fly?
They asked you for 25.
25 would qualify as
Right.
having completed, but you,
Right.
you ran
Well,
54.
the government wanted you there for at least a year.
Right.
For the expense.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, they made the investment in your training
Right.
and all that stuff, and the plane and the equipment. They wanted to get that out of you.
Right, but the
50
weather's so bad there that sometimes you couldn't make missions. So
Right.
that's why ours was prolonged to 50 missions.
Right.
And then I went for an extra 4 missions, which gave me 54.
Did you ever think about, as you got towards the end of that maybe you're testing your luck just a little bit too much?
No, you didn't think that way.
Never thought about it?
No,
Just did the mission, did what you're supposed to do.
Right, yes.
Yeah. Now, should we do this with your age? How old are you now?
Now I'm 90, pushing 91.
And you still look better than me, and that kind of bothers me
Well,
a
you're
little bit.
close to my age.
Well,
So
I'm supposed to be the star. Look, he looks better than me at 91. But as you look at that veteran's experience, and you said most of it was a young man, does it still surprise you how much people appreciate your service to the nation? They really do, don't they?
well, they do to an extent. If you're dressed like I had been at the air show.
Yeah, we mentioned that. Before we went on the air, we were talking about some of the stuff. You had a shirt from the VFW?
The VFW up in Windham, New York.
Right.
1545 is the post number.
Right.
And I wore that shirt. Prior air shows, I just wore normal clothes with a hat.
And you didn't
And
get as
no
much
recognition
response.
at all. But
Right.
when people see me down there this past weekend in Jersey, they stopped me. They was boom, just
Yeah.
like that. I was talking to a Navy pilot, which happened to be my good friend's brother-in-law, who was
Right.
my co-pilot, was one of the relatives, and the other one was my fighter escort.
I'll be darned.
And he's 92 now, but he's in a vet home in Paramus, New Jersey. And I got to talk to them. And the pilot that flies in a C-47 from Long Island, him and his two co-pilots and whatever, ladies.
Yeah.
And we just happened to make friends of them with my daughter and Mark a year ago. And now we're personal friends now.
Isn't that wonderful?
In fact, I was invited to stay over if I come over to Long Island.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
Life is good.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at this experience, and we talked about the VFW, I think it's important for us to talk about that because your generation is passing. We're losing a lot of you guys, right?
Right.
It's something where we talked about the honor flight. I think we should share that. The honor flight was
I went to the honor flight from out of Albany. We landed down in Maryland, and the pilot says to us, "You're going to get a surprise." And he talked about retired pilots.
Right.
They get a hosing. So we get down there, and all of a sudden the fire trucks just gave us a hosing, and I mean a hosing.
Yeah.
And it was great. The whole honor flight was great.
And what a wonderful idea to celebrate those who served so valiantly in that period in World War II. And again, with the generation passing, we have to do that now, so we'd be sure to say thank you for the service. I think it's important.
Well, I'll tell you, if it wasn't for the Vietnam boys, I don't think I'd be up here because I never opened up before.
Right.
Until my son-in-law, he says, "I'm a member of the VFW." No way, because he didn't want to be a member nohow.
Right.
Because they were treated.
Right. It was tough for those guys in
Yeah.
Vietnam. It was. I remember that time.
Well, that's how I got interested in what I'm doing now, too.
It's wonderful.
I think everybody, every serviceman, past, present, and whatever, the more they talk about it, the more the people are going to realize.
I think
what
so.
they
And also,
did.
I think sharing the experience, because it is a brotherhood of man. I mean, you
Definitely.
fellas, regardless of what that war was or what the period was, when you're in that intense situation in war, you are a family, you are brothers.
Right. Did I mention how I got the Purple Heart?
No.
Okay.
Let's hear that.
On the mission, March 29th, 1924, I was born. At 3:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
And we're coming home from a combat mission, and we crimpled in a little bit, and we ended up crash landing and burst into flame. And then that was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So just 20 minutes before my birthday.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That's actually remarkable. Those kinds of things stick with you forever. It's just absolutely unbelievable how those circumstances can come to be. But I think it's important for you to know, Tom, how much we appreciate your service, your valiant efforts on our behalf in World War II. Thank you to you.
So thank you very much.
And thank you to all your fellow
everybody
veterans. We appreciate it. And thank you for your time today. It's very important we share these stories.
I appreciate that too.
Great. We want to thank you for joining us on Salute the Vets. Tom Bristol, my guest today. Outstanding gentleman. It's something that we really want to share with you. So look for us again real soon on Salute the Vets.
Many people do not know about the Veterans Aid and Attendance Benefit Program. Do you? If you're a veteran or their surviving spouse, you may be eligible for the VA Pension Program, which can provide you up to 20 hours of weekly personal care for free. Heart to Heart Companions can guide you through the process. Once qualified, their certified senior care managers will customize a plan for your unique needs. Call Heart to Heart Companions and get started.
Sync features which I was looking for.
The sync features. Let's go talk to someone in the service department. What kind of cars do you work on?
Fords, Subarus, Chevys.
So basically anything with four wheels, right?
Absolutely.
I got a go-kart needs tune-up.
Bring it in. We can do it.
I'm Ron Teeter, owner of Crossroads Ford. You gotta give us a try.
I remember the moment clearly.
I'll never forget that moment.
As long as I live.
I realized at that moment, when we first saw the damage, these people really needed us. And I was going to make a difference right here in my community. Together with local responders, we cleared trees and collapsed walls. We had to get to the family trapped beneath. As a citizen soldier, I made a difference.
Be there for your community at NationalGuard.com.